Welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast, made for women who want their healthiest years to be ahead of them, not behind them. Join your host, Courtney Townley, right now as she breaks down the fairy tale health story you have been chasing all of your life into sensible action steps and lasting change. Hello, and welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast. This is your host, Courtney Townley. As always, I am so grateful that you're here to spend a little time with me. And I want to remind you from the outset of this podcast today that you have less than 48 hours to register for the free consistency code crash course that I am offering to the public September 27th through October 1st. Now, the consistency code is a 4-week paid program that I have been teaching for years to help women end the madness of what I call the Hail Mary approaches to health. If you know sports at all, you probably know that a Hail Mary in a game like football is a long and typically unsuccessful pass made in a desperate attempt to score late in the game. And Hail Mary approaches in the health world are things that require you to take giant measures in short time frames, promising you massive results and feeding off of your desperation. Sounds a lot like the diet industry, doesn't it? Because it is. The problem with these kinds of approaches is that they completely disregard how behavior change really works. They aren't sustainable, which requires the person buying into them to continue to buy into them over and over again. And some women, maybe you're one of them, can stay in that spin cycle of repeating Hail Mary approaches to health their entire life, which is such a waste of precious life energy. There is a better way to improve health. There is a more sustainable way to improve your health. And I introduce a lot of the concepts and strategies for doing just that in the consistency code. So the very reason I even created this program was because I was having a conversation with a mentor of mine a few years back, and she asked me a powerful question. She said, Courtney, if you had to strip down your work into the absolute essential skills that you believe a woman needs to learn in order to radically improve her health, what would they be? And of course, initially I'm like, well, this is an impossible exercise because there's just too many things. But the more I sat with it, I started to realize that no, there's actually only 4 main practices that I believe can revolutionize a woman's health in every way, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And yes, I realize that that is a big statement that I just said. But it's true. And I show you how to do this inside of this crash course. And here's what I find most mind-blowing about this realization, that really most of what I teach boils down into these 4 practices. I had spent nearly 2 decades of my life acquiring education about how to improve health in the human body. And what my experience has taught me in the wellness industry is that what most women need to improve their health has nothing to do with giving her more information about diet and exercise. Because it's not a knowledge gap that most women have. It's an action gap. So the gap for most women between knowing and doing is about 1 million miles. And that's the real problem. You know the things you could be doing to take better care of yourself, to improve your health. The reality is you struggle with the consistent application of those things. So while I'm sorry to tell you that I do not have a magic pill to sell you to revolutionize your health overnight or in just a few weeks in a sustainable way, and the God's honest truth is nobody has that pill to sell you. I know there's a lot of people out there trying to convince you they do, but it doesn't exist. Success in the health arena is a byproduct of your habits. Moving your health to higher ground is a byproduct of the things that you practice consistently, not a byproduct of once-in-a-lifetime transformations. Once-in-a-lifetime transformations are usually a byproduct of a Hail Mary approach, which is why it's once in a lifetime. It's not for your lifetime. So if this sounds like something that you would be interested in, if you would be interested in learning a framework that you can return to time and time again to realign yourself throughout your life at all the various ages and stages of your life, regardless of your diet preferences and exercise preferences, I would strongly recommend that you get yourself registered for this 5-day event. You can register by going to graceandgrit.com/crash course. I'm going to be teaching a live class every day at 8:30 a.m. Mountain Time inside of a private Facebook group. If you can't catch it live, it's no big deal. It will stay on the page so you can watch it later. And I will be providing opportunities for questions and answers. There's a little companion guide that we've created to go along with this so you can keep track of your takeaways and apply what you're learning. So do not delay. Again, we're starting very soon. If you're listening to this at the time that this podcast drops, you have less than 48 hours. So graceandgrit.com/crash course. So I'm going to keep today's episode pretty short and sweet as a precursor to the event. And also because I think this is just a really great reminder from time to time. I want to address the importance of being consistent with simple measures before you take on complex measures along your health journey. Because there's so much opportunity this day and age in present day culture to make the process of improving your health oh so complicated. And the women that I coach, I myself do not need complicated. My schedule is jam-packed. The schedule of nearly every client I work with is jam-packed. Our to-do lists are 10 miles long, and overwhelm can very easily become a way of life. So having coached an awful lot of women over my career, I have come to understand two very powerful things. The more of a hurry that you are in to create an outcome, the less likely you are to sustain that outcome. The second thing is that the more complex the measure you use to create change in your life, the less likely you are also, again, to sustain those measures. So if you're in a hurry and you're using highly complex formulas, your likelihood of sustaining whatever you accomplish is very low. And the craziest thing is that the diet industry has become a multi-billion-dollar industry by selling us on the notion that pursuing both of those things simultaneously is somehow a good idea. Women are in such a hurry to create change. And ladies, I get it, because we get desperate. We feel terrible. We want change fast. But that pain, that desperation, makes us do some really silly things, like continue to buy into super complex measures to create the change that we're seeking. It's really no wonder why so many women are feeling like a hot, frustrated mess along the path to improved health. Now, I've had the really awesome privilege as being the hostess of this podcast and of running a lot of other events. I've had the privilege to interview hundreds of professionals in the women's health space over the past 7 years. And what never ceases to amaze me is that while every professional has their unique zone of genius, at the end of the day, when it comes to improving any area of health, every professional I talk to is really recommending a lot of the same things. And I'm willing to bet that you know what they are. First and foremost, drink water. Hydration has a role in every biological process of the human body. So staying hydrated goes a long way in keeping your biology functioning well. Eating real food. Food that is not processed. Food that our great-great-great-grandmothers would recognize as food does wonders for our body and our brains. Getting adequate recovery. Yes, sleep is a part of that, but recovery is not just exclusive to sleep. Really important. The magic of health happens when we're resting. Moving our bodies. They were designed to move. Movement helps the juices flow, literally like the lymph. It helps to keep the connective tissues in working order. It keeps our bones and muscles strong. It has so many incredible benefits. Taking time to connect with others. We are communal creatures. We are meant to live in communion with others. And living at a time where it is so easy to isolate, thanks to the internet, thanks to the convenience of pretty much having everything at our disposal without ever having to walk out our front door, the need to connect on a practical level has become almost obsolete. But that doesn't negate the importance of connecting for emotional and physical health. Managing our mind, super important. You will seek out evidence for the things that you think about yourself and the way you think about your life. So if you do not have skills for managing your brain effectively, you're probably going to struggle. And we also need to learn how to generate emotions that are useful to us and simultaneously allow ourselves to feel the full spectrum of human emotion without numbing it, right? So we don't drink to numb emotion. We don't eat to numb emotion. We just let emotion move through us. And that seems so simple as I talk about it, but a lot of people do not know how to do that because what they've done is built a practice of avoiding, resisting, and numbing emotion. So these things, practiced consistently, are recommended to overcome nearly every ailment. And sure, while advanced measures are sometimes required in addition to these things like medications or certain medical therapies, these are the things that we can take radical responsibility for, that we can take full ownership of to improve our health. And all of these things can be made highly complicated. And they can also be scaled back to be made super simple. And super simple is always the best starting point. Think of any skill set you've ever learned in your life. Learning how to read, learning how to play a sport, learning how to play an instrument, learning how to cook, learning how to do laundry, learning how to do math. You didn't learn how to do any of those things by getting super complicated right out of the gate. And I know what comes up for a lot of people around this is, well, Courtney, I'm a 55-year-old woman. This isn't my first rodeo. And yet, if you're someone who has never really learned how to manage your thoughts or manage your emotions, or the bulk of your diet is processed food, it doesn't matter what your age is. You're still a beginner. And the sooner you extend yourself the grace of treating yourself like a beginner and stepping into being a beginner, the sooner you can start making real change in your life. If you are serious about making change, simplicity is your friend. Simplicity makes your brain say, sure, let's do that, no problem. Simplicity keeps you consistent. In fact, I would say simplicity and consistency are besties. They go hand in hand. They love each other. Simplicity keeps you consistent. So you don't need to get complicated with these things to start creating change. You just need to start doing them at a level that allows you to keep showing up. And that level for most of us is super basic. So a lot of times when I start working with a client and I talk to them about something like the importance of water, they'll start asking questions like, well, what's the best water filtration system? Right? Or what's the best type of water? And my question is always, first and foremost, well, let's talk about how much, what are you doing for water right now? And sometimes the case may be that they're only drinking like a cup of water in the morning. So before we get into all the fancy ways that we could actually improve our water, let's just start with drinking more water. The same goes with food. Should I count my macronutrients? Well, I don't know. It depends on where you're starting. Do you even know what you're currently eating? For most people I work with, that answer is no. They have a rough guesstimate of what they're eating, but they haven't actually put pen to page to kind of be accountable to what's going in their mouth each day. And that alone can be hugely powerful. It's such an eye-opener to see what you're actually doing. So again, before you do something like counting macros, which I'm not recommending or not recommending, I'm just saying these are conversations that come up with people. Honor where you really are right now and how could you move the dial of progress just a little bit? Should I do intermittent fasting? Well, what are you currently doing? If your diet is made up mostly of processed foods, you don't eat a vegetable each day, you're not drinking water, you're not getting enough sleep, why go there? There's so much work to be done that could help you to make tremendous progress without doing something so extreme. And please, again, I'm not saying that intermittent fasting can't be useful, but it is a more complex measure that I don't believe most people should be starting with. So let me be clear. Simple is, of course, not always easy out of the gate. But it is way easier than complex measures over the long term, which is why we can sustain them, right? Learning how to do the simple things consistently, will that take longer to create an outcome? It really depends. Those Hail Mary approaches work a lot faster initially, but eventually they stop working. And of course, we know why they stop working, because you stop working, because it overwhelms your brain. It's too much. It's too much change too quickly. But if you compare that to simple measures done consistently over a longer period of time, sure, it's not as sexy. You're probably not going to get results as quickly, but you don't have to keep starting over. Your progress is more like a snowball effect, right? The ball kind of just starts real small, nothing exciting. But as it continues to travel down the hill and you gain momentum and you keep going, the ball gets bigger. Now, I have long said that health is not a destination, it's a relationship that needs to be nurtured. The most intimate, long-term relationship you ever have in your life is the relationship that you have with yourself. And your capacity to improve your health is really directly related to your willingness to go in and to get to know yourself. So imagine if you treated the actual relationships in your life like you've been treating your health. So if you are someone who's always going after those Hail Mary approaches, those desperate approaches, how would that go if you applied it to a relationship? My guess is it would not go well. It's like speed dating. Hail Mary approaches are a lot like speed dating. It doesn't create a deep, meaningful relationship to speed date someone. Deep, meaningful relationships are molded over time by consistently showing up, earning the trust of the person, learning about the other person, working through challenges when they show up, and ultimately being committed to staying the course. And that is exactly how deep health really comes into fruition. So if you are ready to stop speed dating yourself and really go in and get to know yourself and start honoring who you are at this age and stage of life and what you truly need at this age and stage of life, I cannot recommend enough that you join me next week for the Consistency Code Crash Course. This course will not be available after I run it. It is only taking place over these 5 days. There is no recording that you can sign up for later. It's happening live. You either participate or you don't. I hope you participate. It's going to be awesome. graceandgrit.com/crash course. I hope to see you soon. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Grace and Grit podcast. It is time to mend the fabric of the female health story, and it starts with you taking radical responsibility for your own self-care. You are worth the effort, and with a little grace and grit, anything is possible.